This is Scott Patterson, Agent Peter Strom from the Saw franchise, and you're listening to Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. I know, yes, there will be blood.
You think it's the living that will have ultimate judgment over you, because the dead will have no claim over your soul. But you may be mistaken.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners for all the support this year. We really appreciate it. Before we get into tonight's film review, I just want to give a quick shout out to our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for Don't Go Out There on those platforms, and you'll find Brian's awesome artwork he made for us. Just give us a follow or a like and interact with us. We really appreciate it. We always like fan questions and comments. And a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. You can find all of our episodes, interviews, our store, our blog, Under the Mask, which is awesome. So yeah, check out our website if you want to check. If you want anything that involves us, just go to our website. And to conclude our themed month of sequel month, it's my pick. I'm super excited to review this movie. I think this has been a great month, honestly, for all four of us. I think we've all picked movies we all truly love, and I'm no different. I chose Saw 6. It's my favorite Saw movie in the entire franchise. I love it. I think it's got, I won't say it's the best twist ending, but I think it's the best one since the second one. I think William, our main person we're following throughout this movie, I love following him the best, like throughout the movie. I think he's put to the test better than any other of the subjects. I love it's got the best trap in the film, which I know Mike, me and him agree on that, but needless to say, this is my favorite movie from my favorite franchise, so I don't think my love of this movie won't be easy to see, and I think my rating will reflect it. Brian,
Go ahead and mark him down for a 10.
Facts. Go ahead, Brian, with the go with your general overview next.
What? What did you just say?
What?
We'll talk about it when we get there.
10 out of 10, baby. I'll give it an 11. Fuck it. I don't care.
A 10, a fucking 10.
A 10.
Anyway, I said this when we did the Saw rankings, but I'm the newcomer to this series of the group. I waited to see this franchise because it had that whole torture porn stigma to it, and as I've said in the past, I didn't know better, and I'm just not a hostile torture porn type of guy. So I actually had to sit down and watch them for the first time whenever we did the Saw rankings. So which by the way you can find on don'tgoothere.com. But that's the only time I've ever seen this franchise completely, and I can easily say I love it. I love how it's basically one gigantic movie and one just plays off the other, which I will say makes it hard for me as a relatively newcomer to the series to review, say just this one, because so much happened in the previous and the next ones. It's a little bit harder for me because I don't know it inside and out like you guys probably do. And, I can't remember if something happened in 3 or 4 or 5 off the top of my head as it relates in here. So I've had to do a little bit more research in that regard, just to see how it happened. But as far as, this entry in the series, it's not my favorite one, but I do like it a lot. I said this during the Saw rankings. I don't care for Hoffman. And he didn't get any better upon this rewatch of this movie. But all in all, I think this is a very good installment into a series that I think is very good all the way through. And again, I'll say I love the non-linear storytelling in this franchise. But it definitely makes it hard to take notes. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Mike, you want to go next, brother? General overview?
Yeah, sure. So I really, really like this installment in Saw. I believe I had it rated number 2 in our rankings. I can't remember off the top of my head. because that was quite a long time ago now, but I'm pretty sure it was my second favorite. And upon actually 2 rewatches in the last week or so, I love everything I love about it, and I'm bothered by the things I'm still bothered by it. I mean, Brian kind of touched on this. Detective Hoffman's not my favorite character in this franchise. I think he kind of strays away from what I thought that John Kramer was going for, and I know that's kind of the point, but it still makes it a little convoluted for me that he's been kind of working there all this time. Like Brian said, you kind of forget what happens in which Saw movie. But just strictly talking about Saw 6, this movie, one thing I would like about Saw 6 and really the franchise is this movie has a plot, and I think it's a good one. And not only is it just a good movie plot in and of itself, but it also was reacting to what was going on while this movie was taking place, healthcare crisis, the financial crash at that time. It really hit back quick on that, and I thought it was really well done. And I know other people have talked about that, and some people don't like that Saul got a little political here, but I think it works because, like Nico said off the top, it gets our main person into maybe the most difficult Saul, I guess you'll call it, trap game he probably goes through the most difficult Saul game of anyone that I can think of to make it or to try to make it out on the other side, and it does have the best Saw trap of all the movies. I don't even think it's close. It's my favorite. I'll save it for when we get to that scene. But all in all, I really like this film. I think that it has some of the best looking kills. Now this is one movie where the lighting on the Saw started to get a little bit too light for me. They go way too far in the next one, but I like the characters for the most part. I like the detectives, but I wish there was more Jigsaw and less Detective Hoffman. Like I wish there was more just like good Saw trap games and less Detective Hoffman. But I'll save it for when we get to another scene later. But all in all, really, really, really enjoy Saw 6.
Yeah, so the Saw rankings, when we ranked the films in the franchise, that was early on in my tenure with the podcast here. Matter of fact, I'm not 100% sure that I was a full-time member at that point, or was that still just a guest? I don't know.
Your first episode as a full-time member was episode 30, and it was Saw.
Okay. And so we reviewed Saw before we ranked the franchise, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Franchise
It
rankings
wasn't long after that though. We did.
Yeah, I knew it was close.
5.
I just couldn't. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I said it back then, and I'll stand firm in my stance that the Saw franchise is. You can make a case for it being my favorite horror movie franchise. It probably is, as far as a complete saga. Even the bad movie I enjoy. I know Nico and I differ on the worst movie in the franchise. Not we don't differ on which one it is, but he absolutely hates it, whereas I can still tolerate it. But when we rank the franchise, I ranked.
But I don't love it.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I rank Saw 6 third out of the 8 films in the franchise to date. Really damn good movie. Really fond of the movie. I said it back then, and I'll say it again, that this movie does a good job. A lot of times in horror movies or just movies in general, you don't really cheer for the villain and feel good about it. But in this one, I was like, man, fuck this guy. He got himself in this in himself. Like William deserves what he's having to go through because he came up with the formula, and he came up with it's his policy that's killing, quote unquote, killing all these people. And so this movie was even more so enjoyable than a lot of the films in the franchise, just because I enjoyed seeing this asshole get his comeuppance. But it does have a lot of good traps. It's got Eddie Winslow, which is bonus points. It does now what you said, Brian. I want to speak to that about how it's kind of hard to keep track of. Did that happen in Saw 3? Did that happen in Saw 4 or 5? Now, speaking of someone who is self-diagnosed, I'm about 95% sure that I have CTE, so my memory is shit sometimes. Yeah, it's tough. When you watch this movie as a standalone, it's tough to remember which one did that happen. So I will say that. And that's not a bad thing. It's just for me and my memory, for me to keep track of everything and put the jigsaw pieces together, if you will.
There you go.
You kind of I kind of
Aha.
need to watch them in succession as one big movie. I mean, that's a daunting task. There's 8 damn films, but still, I almost need to watch them all really close together so that I can remember, oh, yeah, that's where that's from. But that's not a knock. It's just, I think that's actually very well done that they were able to tie together the movies as masterfully as they did. And the flashbacks and the way they interweave the past and the present. I think it's really well done. I enjoy this movie. I'm not going to go full fledged Nico and give it a 10, but it's going to be favorable for me as well. Sorry if you tune into this to hear me shit on movies because I do that a lot. But Nico and I are going to be on the same page. Spoiler.
Hey, real quick before you go, Nico, 2 things. This franchise to me is best enjoyed like a Netflix series. Like if you watch it, it's kind of like a Netflix series that has long episodes. Like it's very enjoyable. Like there's not really just a straight up bad episode. Like if you view it like that, if you watch it in succession, and I agree with you, it is the best way to watch it. And it's funny. I was watching uh the dead meat kill count the other night, and something happened, and I was trying to explain it to my girlfriend, and I just stopped myself. I said, "You know what? Nope, never mind. Don't. It'll take me a million years to give you the backstory on why this makes sense." So, Saw, I love you to death, but the non-linear storytelling definitely gets a little. It gets a little wonky.
Yeah, you can't watch this movie just without knowing the rest of them. You'll be lost as hell.
Right. Right.
Y'all ready to jump into the scene by scene?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, fellas.
All right. The film starts with Simone and Eddie waking up in a room. They're caged off from each other. They awake with like this head screw trap on their heads, and they see like a board with these knives attached to it on there. Billy the dog comes on the TV. They're lone predators, and they're being punished for it. They have to sacrifice their own flesh. Whoever moves the most gets to live. Only 1 minute to offer the most flesh. Eddie uses the knife to remove flesh off of his stomach and ribcage area and takes an early lead. However, Simone scrambles in desperation and cuts and hacks her arm off with a cleaver. She drops her arm into the scale and defeats Eddie in the flesh competition, killing Eddie. She falls and screams us into a title card. Flashback now to Amanda and Cecil in the car, and now we see the ending of Saw 5. Strom is crushed in the room as Hoffman descends into the floor in the glass coffin. He exits the coffin and opens the room back up to a mutilated body. Now at Umbrella Health, we meet the boss, William Easton. He tells Babe on the phone he's not going to make the birthday dinner because he has to meet with Debbie, the company lawyer. He's being sued by a man named Harold Abbott. Flashback to when William denies his coverage. He failed to mention he had oral surgery to remove a cyst, and William explains that scar tissue can cause gum disease that leads to heart disease. Harold freaks out, but that's the rules, William says. Harold exits saying, "You just killed me." Debbie asks, "Do you think he did it on purpose?" He brings up the good the company does, like charity work, and we see Pam Jenkins on the news talking about Jigsaw. William tells Debbie it was the dog pen who found the discrepancy in Harold's application, and I wrote that they're all kind of suck-ups. All right, Brian, that's the first 2 scenes I got. You want to kick us off?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, every time I hear Umbrella, whatever, I always think of Resident Evil. Anyway, the right off the bat, little fast fact. The plan was actually to bring Dr. Gordon back in this installment. I know he eventually comes back, but man, I would have liked to have actually seen that come to fruition. I was trying to see what he filmed like around that same time, and it looks like it was more than likely a Christmas Carol for Disney, I think. And I mean, I know he comes back for the next one, I believe, the final chapter. I roll final chapter, but I do wonder what this would have been like, honestly, if he'd have been in it. I think this is another great opening for the franchise. I'll say Eddie is terrible at following directions, by the way. Look, if your friend and it tells you to not lean forward, the first thing you should not do is lean forward, by the way. I do love this because, the entire time you think he's got such an advantage because of all his fat. And it's gruesome as hell, which, I mean, I know early entries in the franchise progressively got worse with that, but they definitely went more shock torture porn for these like later installments for sure, which, I don't hate at all. I like this franchise. Strom was one of my favorite characters in the franchise, so I hate seeing him die again. But a friend of the show, Scott Patterson. Another big thank you for doing the intro on this episode, by the way. He's probably my second favorite character in this entire franchise. Mike touched on this a little bit earlier. I've got it written down here about how period centric this movie is. How it focuses on the healthcare and financial crisis that happened around 2008, and that I'm here for it. You talked about that it gets political and it's not a big deal, and I agree with you because mostly that's it's been the truth about insurance companies forever, and people have said it forever, regardless of your political affiliation. I mean, we can all agree insurance companies suck. And lastly, I'll just a little comment about the dog pen. To me, it doesn't really stand out, and which I actually in my closing, I go into a little bit more in my closing statement as like a nitpick of this movie. But to me, it's just the dog pen. Like, I wish they would have had a little bit more character development and build up with that a little bit. Except, of course, Darius McCrary, who immediately recognizable as looking exactly as he did nearly 20 years prior as Eddie Winslow in The Family Matters. Because it's a rare condition this day and age to reading the good news on the newspaper. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Oh, hey, that's the first thing I think of when I see him too. So to see him in this movie the very first time I saw it was kind of like okay, Winslow, okay. Just starting off the back here, I like this opening scene a lot. I think the concept of having to offer your own flesh, given the reason why they're there in the first thing, is kind of cool. Um, shout out to the woman, I'm drawing a blank, who played Simone. She got the part on that reality show. I
Scream
remember that.
Queens.
Yeah,
Scream
and I
Queens.
remember that show too. I just don't remember her winning. But she's actually really good in this scene. Like, the minute she kind of like loses it and snaps and says, "I have to actually take my arm off," and goes meat cleaver with it. Great, fantastic scene. The fact that they were both willing to do it is even more crazy. So I also like the head screw kill. I think that was kind of just kind of different and unique. Not too over the top or too unbelievable that it could be a thing. Um, Brian, you talked about how the insurance companies have always been kind of shitty. Um, that's definitely a thing, and I think that's why this movie, while it is very of its time, is still relatable. However many years later, because insurance companies still do this to people. They still find their loopholes and ways around stuff, and I think that's why the plot is so interesting of this film specifically. If you're going to watch a standalone Saw movie, the first one, and this one, you could if you watched some catch up material, just because of the plot. Um, the dog pound thing, or like the everyone that we're going to see again later on. As much as I love that trap, I do agree with you, Brian. I wish they had just kind of fleshed out why we should care about these people a little bit more. But it's not a huge problem for me. Like, I think it's okay. I just wish we could have gotten to know them a little bit more than this little thing right here. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have on this set of scenes. But I like how this movie begins. It takes us to it has us in a cool Saw game, and then we're on to like what is the actual plot of this movie. And I think that this movie deserves a pat on the back for at least touching on this in a horror movie, which not many things were, not a lot of horror movies, especially a sixth installment of a franchise like this, is willing to go and do that. And I think it works for the rest of this film.
Yeah, so you said that the first thing you thought of when you saw Darius McCray was Eddie Winslow. First thing I thought of was, I'm pretty sure that no one has ever seen Darius McCray and Zach Randolph in the same room together, because they look like doppelgangers. Zach Randolph, of course, former Memphis Grizzlies star. Anyway, the opening scenes, I think it's a good trap. Of course, what would a Saw movie be without the the initial trap with two unsuspecting strangers? And I like how I really enjoy the topical nature of the traps. You're predatory lenders, so you're going to get what you deserve. This is what you've been doing metaphorically to people, so we're going to do it literally to you. But I absolutely hate how she opened her shirt and acted all surprised, like, "Oh, I ain't got no fat to cut off, bitch." You know how good you look under that shirt. Shut up. Just get to cutting your arm off. That annoyed me. Like, come on, man. But regardless, I like the flashback after that, how they kind of gave us a little refresher course on what had happened in Saw 5. That was well done, remembering, what happened with Strom and Hoffman and everything. So that was well done. Then we get to meet William, and I hate him from the beginning. Like, we get to see this man be evil. I've said it for years. Insurance and pharmaceutical companies are the biggest villains in America or in society today anyway. And so this just proves my point, furthers my point. He did a very indecent thing. It might have been following the policy and following the formula and going by company policy and procedure, but it's not a decent thing to do as a human to basically bring up something from all those years ago and sentence this man to death. So you automatically hate William. Now, the dog pit, I actually didn't have a problem with the dog pit because I think it was very spot on to demonstrate corporate America. You've got this guy up in the office living the cush life. He's not really doing shit. He's got an assistant outside who's telling him, hey, you've got a meeting, blah, blah, blah. While you've got 6 people sitting around busting their asses on the phone nonstop. And so I thought it did a good job of demonstrating that hierarchy there. But then they also explained what they're there for. He said, if there's a loophole, it's them that finds it. And so that they're going to be crucial to the development of the storyline in this film. And you automatically know that if you can foreshadow that William is going to be in a predicament, I just automatically assume, okay, the dog pit's going to have to either save him or I didn't really think he would have to save them. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that they were going to be paramount to the pinnacle of the movie.
And I just want to give a quick shout out, like Mike mentioned, the actress who played Simone, Tanedra Howard, big shout out. She won a reality TV show. I think it was on VH1. So that's why she got the role in this movie. So big shout out to her. All right, Hoffman is listening to the audio of the first trap and then gets a call. He heads back to the crime scene and is greeted by Erickson, who only made the trip because there were fingerprints found at the scene. They were Strom's fingerprints. He now reveals to Hoffman that Agent Perez is still alive, to Hoffman's shock. Hoffman asks what else they're hiding from him. Perez says Strom knew all the 5 victims from the realty trap in Saw 5. Erickson offers Hoffman access to all their info going forward. Pam now greets with Hoffman, and she tells him she knows more about Jigsaw than he thinks. She brings up the box that he left for Jill Tuck, and she wants an interview. Hoffman goes into Simone's hospital room and asks who did this to her. She gets pissed when he presses her with questions about who did it to her. She goes off on him and shows her nub of an arm, and she didn't learn her lesson and now leaves. Now we see Jill in her apartment watching the home video of her and John and their son Gideon's ultrasound. She flashes back to when Cecil killed her baby in her womb. She opens the box and reveals 6 envelopes and another mail envelope package thingy in the box. Pam calls Jill and leaves a message asking to talk about John. Flashback to the beginning of Saw 4 where Hoffman gets a tape saying his game's just begun. The coroner shows Hoffman pictures from all the jigsaw pieces cut from the victims. They all look the same, but the coroner says the most recent victim, a different knife was used to cut out the puzzle piece of flesh, and the only other with the same type of knife was with Seth Baxter. Erickson says they're checking the tape with Baxter to tie the 2 kills together. Hoffman is looking hella nervous, I wrote. Jill gets to the clinic and sees Hoffman and calls him to her office. He tells her game begins tonight and he controls all aspects of the game. Jill gives him 5 of the 6 envelopes and he works alone from now on. Jill says she's only carrying out John's last request. She tells him that William is unfinished business. Jill flashes back to John in her office telling her that these patients will continue to hurt and abuse the system. They have no respect for the lives they're destroying, he says. He says he shows Jill a recovered Amanda and how his method works. He helped me, Amanda says. Back at Umbrella, William is in his office and more Jigsaw news on the TV. Then the TV cuts off from the storm outside. William sees a shadow of a man with a gun, so he grabs his gun. He crawls through the office cautiously and he shoots the man, but it was a security guard and he panics. And now the pig-faced person grabs William and injects him, and he wakes up in a trap. His arms and legs are bound in chains with a respirator on. John comes on the TV, and today is the day they meet again. He tells William his policy doesn't account for the human will to live, and his policy will be put to the test, with bombs on his limbs for all 4 of them. If he fails, he will never see his family again. A young man and his mother wake up in his cell and see William in his trap. First test, he must hold his breath longer than the office janitor, a man who has high blood pressure and smokes. Every breath you take, the tighter the clamps will crush your ribs and chest area. The game starts. They both hold their breath, then the janitor takes a breath. Eventually, the less healthy janitor loses. He pisses himself and has his ribs and core crushed to death, setting William free, and he removes one shackle from his wrist. He has a surgery wound on his ribs as well. He finds a key and arrow that leads to the next game. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I love them bringing back Perez. Again, continuity is something that I'm vehemently on the record as saying is very important to me in a franchise. And by God, if anything, this series has continuity. And hell, sometimes they even make shit up to make it continuity. But I actually saw one review that said, it's a series that almost punishes you for paying attention because it changes everything. But I mean, I disagree with that. I think that's a series who rewards loyal fans and gives you, things that you'd only know if you'd seen the other entries. So I don't think it works later in the newest one, Jigsaw, I believe. But this one, it does work for me. I think it works for sure here. By the way, in that home video, I just want to say it's the worst looking ultrasound I've ever seen. Um, and I've said this before, so I'll just say real quick, but this whole miscarriage thing, like every time it shows it hits home for me. So every time I see this part in any of the movies, it just kind of like it hits me a little bit differently. A nitpick of mine was bald John Kramer. That bald cap looks terrible in that scene, and with that little soul patch, Kramer looks like Howie Mandel. I just want to put that out there too. Um, Also, I think this is a mistake because although they say, Jigsaw, quote unquote, Jigsaw used a, knife with a serrated edge on it to cut that piece out, and the real Jigsaw used a scalpel. But I believe if you go back and watch, and I did not go back and watch, but I'm 99% sure that this is true. But Hoffman really did use a scalpel, I think, for that. So I think that they just kind of messed up whenever they did that. Um, a little fun fact: this was the first Saw movie to use digital timers in body worn traps. And I think everybody else has spoken to this, and I haven't yet. But so I'll just go ahead and say that this whole William going through each one of these traps in this almost like House of Horrors type game, I really do love this. And the whole misdirection at the end, the bait and switch with the family, absolutely great. And I'll speak to that later. But lastly, and I really just want to say this because I think it's very true in this one, but this movie right here really lets Tobin Bell do what he does well. And his lines are crazy good in this one. It's like every single time that Tobin Bell speaks and talks, he has something to say in this one. And I think it's very good writing in this one for him, especially.
Yeah, you mentioned it right off the bat. Tobin Bell, when they let him just be John Kramer and Jigsaw, he does a great job. And I think it shows, especially in this movie and throughout these scenes. Now, you mentioned the bald cap. It is bad. It's noticeably bad. It's hard to miss it. I like, now I'm going to kind of jump around here because, that's kind of what Saul does. So I might as well do it too. Um, I love the janitor trap. I think how we get William into the janitor trap, I'm not a big fan of how they kind of like invade his office and stuff like that. I mean, whatever, guy in a pig head is fine, but I'm a big fan of the janitor trap, and I'm a big fan of it because of how it ties into William treating his customers, his employees and everything else. And just, I kind of want to see this guy die, but it's also interesting to see him make it through these traps as well. And I think that's kind of something I enjoy about Saw 6 overall. Again, some of the Hoffman and detective stuff, I'm just not a fan of that side plot. And I know it has a lot to do with the continuity throughout the film, so I'm not down on it. I kind of tune it out sometimes, especially because Detective Hoffman's just not one of my favorite characters. I like involving Jill in the box though, because it is a way to tie it in. And the scene when you get Hoffman and Jill together, that I don't know. There's like I guess I just don't like Hoffman, honestly. And I think Jill is really good here, and the flashback you get with him with her and Tobin Bell, and is really really good, especially the miscarriage angle. Like Brian said, that hits home for a lot of people. So it makes them seem like real people and not these maniacal weirdos that are technically not killing people, but they are killing people. I know what Saw fans like to say, but I'll get into that another day. But no, I like the set of scenes, but I do think the janitor trap is probably the strong point. I guess I just like the traps in Saw, and some of this other stuff I could take or leave. So, um, but again, big shout out to Tobin Bell here, man. Brian touched on it when he says something in this movie, especially when he's looking at William into the camera. It's damn good stuff.
Yeah, so I really like the reveal that Perez is still alive. I thought that was a pleasant twist, just seeing the oh shit look on Hoffman's face and seeing him kind of panic while trying to maintain calm. He's like a duck sitting on the water, right? Like he looked calm, but you could tell underneath the water, those feet were just kicking away. Hoffman doesn't try to hide shit in this movie, man. Like in the hospital, he asked the girl, he asked her,
Right.
Did you learn your lesson?
Thank you.
And she's like, what lessons did we learn? Look at my fucking arm. And then, it's just, he's not subtle at all in this movie. And that kind of pissed me off, but it is what it is. And then the feds had to know it's Hoffman by now. Why are they risking more deaths and more innocent lives? I get annoyed with that actually, because they seem to have enough on him to put him away. And so by them being this nonchalant and almost flaunting it in his face that haha, we got you, but you don't really know that we got you. Like they were a little bit too lackadaisical for my taste, because again, more innocent lives could be lost by them not busting them when they can. Like the blade connection there, that's just too obvious. And bringing up the guy who killed your sister, like get out of here. If you know it's him, then nail him to the wall. And then we go to the office there. Why the hell would he shoot the security guard? I get it, it's dark and you're scared, but if you're in the office after hours, you have to know that there's a security guard there, right? So when you see someone walking, your thought process might be, hey, that might be a security guard. Let me ask him, hey, is that you, security guard? Before I just fire a round into his chest. Also, why you got a gun in your desk if you got a fucking security guard, man? Relax. That's almost all I got. The last thing I've got is, so I like the trap with William and Hank, the janitor, but I hate that Hank the janitor is even in that trap because, well, he smokes cigarettes. Like, you're going to potentially kill this man, and then, yes, you're going to kill this man because he likes to, suck ash. Come on, cut the man a break.
Oh, it is one of the dumbest reasons that John Kramer has ever put anyone in a trap. Top three.
No shit. We're gonna start putting people in traps for drinking too many Coca-Colas, and after a while, the next one.
Hey, I might have had too many of them earlier. Whew.
This guy was in the public urinal or public stall earlier and didn't courtesy flush. Let's kill him. Put him in a trap.
That's what they did to Boy George. Oh, sorry, never mind.
Tara cries for help, and Brent sees a lever that says live or die that's connected to a tank of hydrofluoric acid, and she asks about the timer. She says they're here because of his father. Hoffman watches on and sees their pictures, and he now sees a picture of Pam Jenkins. Pam walks the halls of an apartment complex and knocks on Jill Tuck's door. Pam hands Jill a note, and she says it means nothing to her and closes the door, and she slides the note under her door and walks back to an already open, non-working elevator. She exits and is ambushed by the pig-masked man. Pam is in a cell near Brent and Tara. William sees the party written on his wrist. It's when he and John first met. He remembers their first conversation, and he explains the formula to John. He divides that formula, and basically, he chooses who lives or dies. John says it doesn't take into consideration the will to live. And I wrote, William looks real nervous now. He wanders through a door and grabs two handles, and then is jump scared by a hanging Billy doll that crashes into the window he looks through. He sees Addie and Alan, the two fellow office workers, on small platforms with barbed wire nooses. He must make a choice who can live. One is a healthy young man with no family, and Addie is a less healthy woman, but with a large family who should be a huge loss to them if gone. His choice isn't easy now that he looks at the lives being lost. The chains tighten as he holds on, and they almost fall off their platforms. He looks down at their pictures and sees Addie and her family, and he chooses to save her, killing Alan, hanging him. His body crashes into the window, and a crying William tells a thankful Addie to find a way out of here and be careful, and he must keep going. Tara asks, what if we put the acid on the bars? But Brent's like, come on, how are we going to do that, with our hands? Brent sees a mirror and wonders who's behind the glass. Tara asks, what do you want? And Pam is in the other cell crying for help. She grabs her tape and listens on. Hoffman hangs up more pictures of the test subjects and gets a call from Erickson. He found the Seth Baxter tape and wants to talk to him in person. Jill goes to the hospital and drops that large envelope through a mail slot in a doctor's office. We get a flashback to Timothy from Saw 3. He's in a wheelbarrow. John gives Hoffman some engineering advice, and then Hoffman dumps Timothy's body onto the ground. John asks if Mark likes how brutality feels, and he tells him he wants him to suffer as much as he does. Amanda and Hoffman chat now, and he tells her he doesn't take his life for granted. She says she's not going anywhere. Then he asks, you sure about that? And I wrote, John is very sickly looking. Time to get Dr. Denlin, he says. Jill greets them as he's pushed in the wheelchair. She asks John to stop, and he promises her that he will provide a way out for her, and he gives her a key, and she'll know when to use it. All right, Brian, go ahead. That's the next two scenes I got.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot on this group of scenes. First of all, I'll say I can't believe we've gone 4 scenes, and this is the first time that this is being mentioned, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. Betsy Russell, can I say, looks amazing in this movie. I think she ages amazingly. I also think she gives her best performance of the entire franchise in this movie right here. The trap with the file clerk, Alan, and the middle-aged secretary, like, for as crappy of a lesson, or if that was even a lesson for the, like we talked about with the janitor trap, this to me is a very good lesson. Like, I think that it's like, I don't know. I really like this trap, as simple as it is. This is also a first installment of the franchise where Billy the Puppet appears in person to deliver the rules of the game rather than a warning or congratulations message. And this is also the first installment where Jigsaw appears in a pre-recorded video to deliver the rules of the game. So that's a nice little fun fact there. And I want to give props to, I think it's a genius idea for the mom, Tara, by the way, and her son, for her to say, let's put the acid on the bars or eat away at them. Like, you don't usually see that kind of smarts out of victims in movies. And to me, that stood out as like, hey, you know what? That's smart as shit. Last thing, like I said, I don't have much about this group of scenes, but I think this is a good group of scenes that moves the plot along. And I really do love, we talked about the non-linear storytelling, but I really do love how everything's so intertwined, and the flashbacks that kind of insert Hoffman in, while I'm just like, oh, okay, this is the first time the franchise does it. I know it does it again later, and that's why I don't care for that one that much, because I'm like, okay, you've already done this. But this is the first time it does it, so I'm like, all right, I can buy that Hoffman was there the whole time. But it just makes me hate Hoffman even more. So, I mean, just the flashback. So I guess it accomplishes what it wants to do. And it's definitely more interesting than the side plot here with Hoffman and the police force, which, I'll kind of get into a little bit later and Mike kind of touched on. But I like the flashbacks for sure.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I'm intrigued when I watch this opening scene here, and it's the mom and son, and you don't really, why they kind of go at why they're there, but you don't know as the viewer, like, how they tie in, and I think it's great for that reason. I'm intrigued. It's gotten me hooked, and now I really want to see why they're there, how they tie into William, and I think the two, as they do kind of have an on-screen chemistry that I could see as mom and son, and I think it's good. And I like that they're confused, and we as the viewer are kind of confused with them. So I enjoy this little side plot here and how it ties in way more than I do the Hoffman storyline. And again, I've meant to mention this, and I just forgot. But I also like the inclusion of Perez in this. I just don't like how she's executed, or how it's executed later on. But um, you know, I don't have a ton here because this is kind of like those scenes that kind of move stuff along. But I like the trap and how he has to pick who lives and who dies according to his rules, and I think that's really fun. And I like the Jigsaw puppet delivering this in person. It was creepy, really really cool. And I know Nico now has one of his own, and that that's what I think of now when I watch this movie. It's just a really like creepy vibe from that. But I agree with you, Brian. I like that trap because it is just a very simple, super easy one, and it's emotional though. Like I mean, he has to look at real people instead of just pieces of paper and see what he's been doing and kind of pick, like. And I think that's really interesting. As simple as the trap is, not a whole lot more, but I like the interaction with John and Jill. I think it's really good. And Brian, you mentioned it. I was kind of saving it because I know I normally come off the top, and then the with the call me sometime, but I decided to save it. Jill, call me sometime.
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot on these scenes either, but what I do have is that I love how they trick you with Tara and Brent. You're thinking that William is the father that they're referring to because that's who they see on the screen, and you're like, oh, so that's what makes the ending so special to me. Was this scene right here? But I love the trap with the barbed wire nooses with the secretary and then the loner, because it really forces William to reflect and do some self-realization of how much of a scumbag he is, because by his policy he made the wrong choice. So I really enjoyed that scene right there a lot too. And then okay, boy, I'll tell you, this set of scenes by now, my CTE's got me in a blender with all the flashbacks because I'm sitting here like, what was that 3? Was that 4? Was that 5? Like by now, I'm
Yeah,
like, fuck,
thank
man,
you.
what's going on? What movie was that? I don't, but it's okay. Because normally I do watch these as a binge type, watch them all together. So it's normally, but when I rewatched it this time, just this movie, I was like, holy shit, man, I don't remember. But anyway, I thought they were well done, except for, like Brian mentioned earlier, that bald cap. That's the one thing that I'm a shit on the most on this movie that I didn't bring up. But that bald cap was terrible. I thought I always get a little chuckle when Hoffman dumps the body and then John's like, that's a human life. It's like, my man, you're about to strap that man up in a brutal ass trap, and you're concerned about that being a human life. Like that always gets a chuckle out of me. But
Hey,
Your
Brian,
Keanu Reeves voice and Tobin Bell voice are the same, by the way.
I mean, they kind of have similar voices.
holy shit, what if John Wick grows up to be John Crane? Anyway,
No,
No,
that's
that's Kevin
Macaulay
McAllister,
Culkin.
brother.
Yeah, Kevin
Yeah.
McAllister. There you go.
Yeah.
true.
Hey,
Okay.
hey, that you mentioned that bald cap. That bald cap looks worse than this one I wore when I was 8 years old when I went for Halloween as Stone Cold Steve Austin, brother. I'm not joking. I mean, it's a toughie.
All right. Side note: send me a picture of that. Second of all,
No, because I'll be memed for the internet to see it. I don't need you to do that.
but anyway, that's all I've really got on this set of scenes. Not a whole lot, but yeah, by this time I'm really doing the mental Olympics, trying to keep up with the flashbacks.
Oh,
I can't even
absolutely.
spell CTE.
All right, Brian, cut that. Cut your own joke out of there. I'm just kidding,
Oh,
Brian.
Brian, bad joke. Come on.
I'm just kidding.
Let me live.
William is in a boiler-like room full of steam traps. He flashes back to when John requested coverage and met with him. He tells William of a doctor in Norway who does gene therapy. William says Dr. Gordon would have pursued it if he thought you were a good candidate. William tells him it's not feasible for Umbrella and its policy. William says he will be dropped if he pursues this. John says in the Far East they only pay when they're healthy, not sick, so they get what they want. He brings up politicians, doctors, and patients, but then he ends up blaming it's the insurance companies. He tells William he has money, and this is about principle. He says, this is my life in question. And sorry, but I wrote this. He now drops this is my favorite line of the whole series. He now drops my favorite line to William with a stern gaze into his eyes. You think it's the living who have ultimate judgment over you, because the dead will have no claim over your soul, but you may be mistaken. He finds his next tape in game. The tape tells him he must help Debbie cross this room in 90 seconds. He holds the key to her survival, and he just has to crawl through this like cage tunnels with steam traps all through them. He holds the key to her survival. She gets burned by the steam, and William pulls a lever that stops the steam so she can cross it, but it burns him every time he does it. She crawls through a huge steam trap and up this ladder. It's revealed the key to her freedom has been sewn into William's body. Only 20 seconds. She grabs a saw and slashes at him, but he punches her and fights her off. She runs out of time, and the trap punctures her skull, killing her. He removes another bomb. Pamela listens to her tape again. It says she will experience the meaning of sacrifice, and you'll see the consequence of those who unjustly hurt others. She destroys her tape and sees William walk through, and in blood it says, "See it work." Brent sees the camera, and someone is watching them and what decision they'll make. But Tara says not to pull the lever yet. All right, go ahead, Brian.
I think I have the most nitpicks out of this group of scenes that I do of all of them. First of all, I'll start out with a good note. I love how the boiler room scenes, like, I love how they're shot. The film has like that almost like desaturated look to it, and it's like either a red or orange filter on it or something. Anyway, I think it looks fantastic, so I wanted to point that out. Um, it is a little bit of stretch to me, though, that the tattoos, or I don't know if it's tattoos, the writing that's on his wrists whenever he takes the clamps off. To me, like, I don't think I'd never thought that those were detailed enough to trigger flashbacks. I mean, it's like, what one said, like the party. I mean, how many parties has this dude gone to? And I mean, I know that, I don't know, maybe that one conversation stood out enough, but I don't know. That seems like a pretty big jump for him to assume that he's going to remember just based on those two words or whatever. That to me was a little bit of a stretch. Also, it was a nice little touch in the flashback in William's office with the piranhas in the background in the fish tank. But like, with that said, I think it was way too on the nose for Kramer to point them out. Like, I wish they would have just kind of let that to the audience to kind of put together personally, but that's just, a little nitpick of mine. And lastly, I think it's a very tense scene with Emily in the maze, but come on. Like, that kick to the nuts would have taken William out. Look, he's definitely not immediately getting up and hitting her back. No way, even with his little insurance denying dick, it's not happening.
Maybe he's
all
a
right, so
eunuch.
yeah, maybe. Okay. All right. So I'll give you that. But tell me this though. Like, and this is my biggest, I love it because it makes a good story, but that's some problem I have with this big long trap, with all these different traps. What happens here if she gets the key back? Like, I'll give you the first two because those are pretty sure wins for William. I mean, obviously he's picking who dies in the first one, and the first one, or the second one, the first trap, he's pretty much got the janitor. But what happens here if she gets the key back? What happens if she kills him? Like, the whole ending setup with the family, his sister, like, the whole thing's for naught. So I don't know. I think that's pretty damn risky right there. I mean, all she really had to do was kick him in the nuts and cut him open. I mean, and realistically, that probably would have happened when she did kick him in the nuts. So anyway, that's just, like I said, I had nothing but really a whole lot of nitpicks in that group of scenes.
Right, and I'm glad you said that, Brian, because this is probably my least favorite set of scenes in the movie. Um, it's my least favorite trap in this movie for sure. For all the reasons you said, I'm going to touch on it in a second, but just kind of the backtracking some, not a whole lot because I didn't want to just completely shit on everything. But the interaction with John Kramer and William, it's great. I like that flashback, and we have a lot of flashbacks in this franchise, but I really, really enjoy the interaction. When John's trying to get his cancer treatment and they won't fund it. I think it's good to see. Like, obviously, we know why William's there now, but it's good to see that it had a personal effect on John Kramer as well. I think that was a really good twist and a really good, interesting thing to put in this movie. It makes me even more tied into William's story. And again, as much as I'm not this big John Kramer defender, like some people that love this franchise are, that swear up and down he's never murdered anybody, in this circumstance, he is teaching William a lesson here, and it did personally affect his life. So I see this one makes sense. Back to this trap, I don't like it for everything that you just said, Brian. what happens? All it takes is one wrong move by William, and he's done. So what does that do for everybody else? That makes zero sense to me. I'm sure there's a logical way that I'm just completely missing here, but it didn't hit for me. I just think that this is the only dud as far as the traps in this movie. I think that it falls flat. And you mentioned him being kicked in the nuts. Yeah, one more time and he's done for, man. Like open him up, take the key, forget about it. And so I think that leaving one of these up to chance that aren't super easy wins for William, I think was it could have ruined the whole thing. So I didn't necessarily like that from a just kind of moving the story along standpoint.
Yeah, so first of all, when we get introduced to the boiler room, I thought that the next trap was he was going to have to face the Undertaker and Mankind in a boiler room match, and I was here for it.
Now hold on, player.
No, I completely agree with Brian though about the vague nature of the messages on his arms. Like, yeah, the party.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that one specific party when John Kramer was talking to me about get the fuck out of my face with that. Like, come on, that's just way too vague. Unless this is a lame ass dude, and maybe that is the only party he's ever been to. But the steam trap was brutal to watch though, just because that shit. If it were real, that shit had to be hot as hell, and just seeing the agony of him when he's having to sacrifice and take the steam so she can get through, and then at the end when she makes it to the last little home stretch there and he lets go and it's blasting her right in the face, like Jesus, that was painful to watch. But why didn't they try to reason? Like, you see the x-ray there and okay, the key's inside him. It couldn't have been that deep, and he's got stitches. Like, she didn't even try to be like, okay, let's rip your stitches out so I can get the key. She just straight up tried to kill him. She went for the kill, and that doomed her. Like, come on. Like, if she would have just been like, okay, we got a minute, let's get that key out of you, maybe they could have worked together, but she just grabbed the saw and tried to cut my man. So I don't blame him for kicking her, for letting her fall. And by the way, when she died and went tumbling down, that was a bit much for me. It's just kind of funny how her body tumbled all the way down and hit every possible step on the way down. But the one thing that I'll say to your point about what happens had she got the key, then it would have ruined it. I don't think it would have ruined it, because you also got to remember the plot twist that's coming at the end. This is not his game. So if he dies now, maybe Tara and Brent are just like, okay, we can go now. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, then what does Hoffman make them choose like killing, what's her name? His wife? Or sister, So, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. To me, it just messes the whole thing up. It's very risky, very risky.
It is risky, but I think, I got to believe that as intricate as these traps are and how crazy the plots have been up to this point, that there had to be a backup plan. I don't think that Hoffman's a moron, even though he's being a little reckless in this film, taunting and not even trying to hide who he is. I still think, I choose to believe that had that been the case, there would have been a backup plan in place to keep things moving along as planned.
I would hope so, because you mentioned how intricate all the a lot of the saw traps are for the most part. It did feel out of place to have a running plot line with one character be that up to chance. And I do get what you're saying, Dustin. There's probably a backup plan, but it just felt, while watching it, it kind of takes away from it a little bit to me, because we do want to see William continue to go, because we want to see what the ultimate, what his ultimate judgment ends up being, because that's, Saul, am I thinking of Saw 4? Very similar, very same kind of story arc throughout. So that's kind of where I go with it.
Yeah, because like you said, Saw 4, the girl with the hair trap could have killed Rig, and then the movie's over.
Absolutely.
Or in Saw 3, the lawyer could have jumped slow-ass motherfucking Jeff. Shout out to Dead Meat. The lawyer could have just killed him if he wasn't paying attention. But no, I get where you're coming from.
Oh, look at Saw 4 being done. Oh, sorry, never mind. Anyway.
No, Saw 4 is great. But anywho, Hoffman shows up to meet Erickson and Perez, and she tells him there were traces of basically Freon in the fingerprints. The voice with Seth Baxter's tape was scrambled intentionally, and it wasn't John Kramer. She asks if he's timing something, and they head to the lab to hear the voice unscrambled. Jill opens the box and places an envelope and a clicker in a bag and gets in her car. William goes through a door, and shout out to Mike because me and him both agree on this. William goes through a door and reveals the greatest trap in Saw history, in my opinion. The dog pound
Absolutely.
is all in there as they recognize William's voice. He pushes through the door and lights come on and reveal the dog pen all on a carousel bound to it, spinning in a circle. The tape says that only two can live, and he can save two of them by pushing a button that will stab his hand. Their deaths marked by the blood on his hands. It stops first on Aaron, and he begs for his life, but he's shot by the shotgun. The second person it stops on is Emily. She tells William that she has two kids, and he knows them well, so he spares her life. The third person it stops on is Gina, but he doesn't spare her life, and she's shot by the shotgun. And between each turn, the dog pen yelled to William why they should live and to follow the policy. The next person up is Dave, and he says his parents are loaded, but he's killed next. Next up is Shelby, and William spares her life. And up next is Josh, who realizes his fate. He yells at William, calling him a spineless, pussy whipped motherfucker, and his policy is bullshit. And you look at me when you're killing me. William looks on at the dead bodies and the two survivors, and the next two scenes are the ending. I really love the carousel trap. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I do too. The carousel. I mean, what else can you say about it? I mean, some fun facts about it. Originally, it had 10 victims tied to it, but this was changed for pacing and also to tie in with the Saw 6 and the 6 victims. And so, also, it's the longest trap at 8 minutes, I believe, and claims the most victims of any trap in the franchise. So yeah, I mean, you can't. If you don't like that, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Um, I love that dude when he knows he's about to die. I mean, he just goes ape shit. You motherfucker, you spineless pussy whip motherfucker. Your policy's bullshit. I love his rant. I think it's great. Um, and was it just me? To me, it seemed like one of Eddie Winslow's reasons why he wanted to be saved was family matters. Did he say family matters? I think he did. I don't know. I would go back.
Almighty son.
I really think that he said family matters. So I don't know. Anyway.
Hey, Brian,
Um,
cut that. Love you, brother.
but this is
Brian
definitely my
has kids,
favorite.
everyone.
Yeah, I have kids. No. This is definitely my favorite set of scenes. Look, and let me just say, is for serious, you can just see how beaten William is at the end of this set of scenes, and I think it's great acting by Peter Outerbridge, who plays William. I think he plays a great asshole, and I think is honestly better than Costas Mandalore as Hoffman to me. I think he deserves credit. Outerbridge, fantastic job here.
Yeah, so I actually this one particular set of scenes right here at the beginning with Hoffman meeting with Erickson Perez, I as much as I'm not a huge fan of this cop side plot, this scene works for me because I know that we're about to get something. Like and I like that. But Nico, you mentioned it. This set of scenes is about one thing, and it is the best Saw trap of all time. I don't think it's that close. This thing is awesome. Not so much the trap itself, and while it is a cool trap, I like that concept. The intensity of this scene. This is why this movie having a plot so deep as it does works so well. And it's because everybody on I know we didn't get a ton of character development, but we've been introduced to everybody on this carousel, and now he has to pick who lives and who dies, and he gets to look his people in the face and has to look at them while he does it and take punishment for all the other ones. And I just think it's a really good concept. The intensity of the scene, you're kind of on the edge of your seat for the whole damn thing, and it's so well done. It's well shot, which some of these Saw movies kind of end up a little bit on the low budget side. This one doesn't to me, or at least not in this scene. I think cinematography is good. It feels very Saw. It's shot really well, and the acting by all involved is so good. And I just feel every scene, every hole punch in the hand, and every time somebody gets shot. Like I think it's really, really, really damn good. It reminds me of I'm thinking of the I'm gonna draw a blank. There's been so many traps, but it is the best one to me out of all the films, and I think that's what this set of scenes is about. It's fantastic. I can't, and it ties into the plot so well. It makes a lot of sense, and I like the guy going on the rant because that's exactly why William chose the two people that he did. Is because he's whipped.
Yeah. So the first thing about this set of scenes is to go back to Hoffman being there when they get the tape unscrambled, or they're letting him fly too close to the sun here without getting burnt. Like, why are you screwing yourselves right here? Don't let him in on what you're doing. Don't let him know that you're unscrambling and he's gonna want to be there for this. Fuck that. You know it's him by now. So only thing you're doing is you're letting this guy that you know to be a killer in on this shit. So that just annoys the hell out of me. But to go forward, yes, I agree. This trap is phenomenal. I don't know that it's my favorite trap, but it's really damn high up on the list. It's phenomenal. I love how symbolic it is of his policy. That's basically what he did to John Kramer. That's basically what he did to Tara's husband and Brent's dad. He looked them in the eye and sentenced them to death. And so I love this trap. And again, the acting of some may call it overacting, but what would you do if you know that he's chose to save two women and son? Yeah, you're going to freak the fuck out and call him every name under the sun as well. And so I thought that was a very memorable scene for the right reasons. Like, it stood out not because of the overacting, because it's very relatable. I would probably be freaking out even more. And I enjoy the fact that he said, "You look at me when you kill me." Like, yeah, that's what you did, you son of a bitch. William should have been the one taking the shotty to the face, but it is what it is. Good set of scenes.
Oh yeah, I love it. Here's the ending. Back at the lab, they're still unscrambling the Seth Baxter tape. Sashi says they had access to impressive technology. Hoffman seems really nervous. Erickson and Perez says things aren't adding up. Perez doesn't understand Strom's motivation. And Hoffman pours himself some coffee. Erickson now says, let's say he did do it to set up Hoffman. But upon further review, the fingerprints from Strom, he was already dead. And then Sashi gets the tape unscrambled and it reveals it's Hoffman's voice. He cuts Erickson's throat, he kills the power, and he throws the hot coffee on Perez's face. He grabs Sashi and Perez shoots her, killing her. He then stabs Perez in the gut over and over and asks who else knows about him. She says everyone, and he stabs her some more. He goes outside, grabs Strom's arm and hand, and some gas. He leaves more fingerprints and lights the place on fire. Jill is now in the room with the monitors watching William's game in the two cells. Hoffman shows back up, and Jill leaves the bag in a locker in the room, and she leaves a note from Pam on the desk. Brent tells Tara to stay away from the sprinkler, and they need to make a decision. He pushes the lever up as William gets closer, and Pamela gets in a corner scared. Nothing happens, though, and he screams in anger. Tara moves the lever back and looks at the timer. Hoffman finds a note, and it's the one he left for Amanda back in Saw 3. He told Amanda to kill Dr. Denlin, and if she doesn't, he'll tell John that she was there the night Cecil killed John and Jill's baby. Jill appears and shocks Hoffman. William makes it to the end in time. He hears that if he fails, he'll never see his family again. He asks Tara what she's doing here, but it's revealed the conversation earlier with William and his office was to Pam Jenkins, his sister, his only family. Tara and Brent are Harold's wife and son, the man who killed his dad. Jill now binds Hoffman to the chair. John's tape comes on and tells Tara he apologizes for this treatment and that William made the sacrifices to save a loved one, but he didn't save your husband, and it's in your power to save a life. William's life is in Tara's hands. It's not my game, William says. Jill puts the new reverse bear trap onto Hoffman's head. William steps on the platform, activating the lever. Pam begs for mercy. Jill tells Hoffman there was one more envelope and it's John's will. Tara says she couldn't forgive herself if William hurt someone else, but she can't pull the lever. Brent has no problem pulling the lever. You killed my father, you motherfucker, and pulls it towards death. Spikes from the ceiling crash into William's back, and the acid is injected into his body, disintegrating his flesh, and it activates Mark's bear trap as Jill leaves the room. Hoffman bashes the trap against his hand and gets it free and loosens his other binding as flashbacks play and William's body falls apart in half. Flashbacks play of Hoffman. He grabs a screwdriver trying to pry free. He rams the trap through the barred window and slides out the bear trap. And the film ends with Hoffman yelling with his cheek ripped apart and bloody with several flashback door slams. All right, Brian, what do you think about the ending, brother?
Dustin touched on this a little bit, but that whole Seth Baxter like tape voice reveal thing of Hoffman, it's frustrating as hell to me because I mean, damn, like you said, they suspected Hoffman, but they didn't have any backup or, tell anyone else about the findings, which I don't know if it was a budgetary thing, but it seemed to me like a very noticeable budgetary absence of other cops everywhere they go in the police department, which I don't know. I guess it's at night, but it just seemed very empty every time they were in there. Plus, I mean, shit, I've waited forever for Hoffman to bite it, and he survives. It's frustrating as hell. The old bait and switch reveal of the family, amazing, so satisfying. I do nitpick, kind of wish William would have gotten there with like 3 seconds left or 5 seconds left. 1 second is just so cliche, but I mean, okay. Lastly, Michael's death. Holy shit! Definitely my favorite. Spoiler alert of the whole movie. Just fatality. Like all in all, I think it's just a great way to end it up. I really did like the whole game over door slams. The only thing I didn't like was, I was hoping a Hoffman's demise finally, but we have the not so final chapter to look forward to next, it's not a bad ending at all. It takes us into the next one. It's definitely not a standalone for sure, but all in all, good ending.
Yeah, I think this movie is held up really well by the last set of scenes because of the carousel trap. I have some nitpicks here at the end. I'm kind of with the rest of you where I just don't buy the unscrambling Seth Baxter tape and how they find out it's Hoffman. And again, here we are again. Hoffman is a murderer. And again, that's fine, but it's just kind of goes so far away from what the intended Saw plot line is. Um, I and again, I hate to just crap all over Hop because I don't think the character is acted poorly or anything. I just don't think he really fits with what I think everything like the original intent of what Saul was going for. But I guess if you're going to keep going, you kind of need someone that's been there the whole time. Um, yeah, so I love this twist here at the end and how it's not William's family and how it ends up that they get to kill or they get to choose to kill William. And I like the injection death. I think it now it takes a long time, but he almost deserves it. He deserves a little bit of punishment here, and how he ends up dying. I think it's a really creative way to do it. Watching the body fall in half is kind of like it takes a little bit to get me, but I thought it was gross. It was really well done. The very end, man, I'm with you, Brian. Can we get Hoffman the F up out of here, man? And he survived. And I could understand if you were a real true blue Saw fan, how that would probably be kind of, badass to have Hoffman kind of break out of a Saw trap. Not a lot of people do that. And so I see that, but for me, I want him gone as well. But like you said, it does provide story progression and it kind of gets us into the next one, which I have a lot of problems with. But all in all, I really enjoyed this movie, and I think you're right. It's not a standalone, but it is a really good. It's a good installment in a franchise that probably needed a good installment by this point. And I also love the door slamming, and with all the different door slamming, I think that's really well done. I think that's a nice touch. But overall, not a bad film. I think the ending could have been a little bit better, but I feel like at that point I'm just nitpicking because of course we were going to get a seventh one if Hoffman lived. So yeah.
Yeah. So, to rehash what I already said, the unscrambling reveal is just stupid to me because you already know that he's the killer. And when I say you already know, I'm talking about Perez and the feds there. You know that it's Hoffman, so to have him there when you reveal it is just stupid because you know he's a stone cold killer. You know you're probably going to die if you're in the room with him. And then the fact that they had no backup is just ridiculous as well, because I would probably have already had it set up. Hey, we've got this big revelation coming in this case. You might want to send some people over just in case. And then Hoffman wasted way too much time to plant all of those fingerprints if he's just going to burn the motherfucker down. That to me was frustrating. It was just filler, I felt like, in the film to show him go out and get the hand, and flashback to see him pry the hand off the top of the cage there or railing, whatever it was. That was filler to me because he comes back and it shows him putting the handprints everywhere, then just lights it on fire. It was unnecessary because most of the stuff that he put the fingerprints on is meltable. If that's a word, meltable. It would have melted in the fire, so you can't salvage a fingerprint off of it anyway. Flash forward, I love the reveal, the plot twist with the family when you find out that Tara and Brent are not his family. That's not who it is. It's the reporter. Dun dun dun. That was great. That was a great reveal. Very well done. And then I love how they let Tara and Brent choose: does he live or does he die? The poetic justice of you got to choose whether my husband is alive or not. So I agree with Brent. Pull that lever, light that motherfucker up. And that trap is brutal. Yes. Just the fact that it pinned him to the cage. But not only did it pin him, but it had, I don't know, hundreds of needles poking into his back. And not only that, just to pump him full of hydrofluoric acid. Like, that shit is brutal and disgusting. Like when his body just kind of falls apart there. But awesome death, awesome finale to the film there. And I agree with you, Brian, though. I said the same thing with the reverse bear trap, the way he was able to stick it in the metal bars on the door at 1 second. Like, yeah, I agree. That's entirely too cliche. That's what every movie does to make it seem more dramatic, but is unnecessary. Just have him get over there with 7 seconds left or something, and he just made it. But
I didn't even think about that one. You're absolutely right. But I was talking about when Michael got there. I guess to that middle cell in between, his family, I guess, and that other family. He got there I believe with 1 second left. Like, so they both, I guess, were at the 1 second left. I didn't even realize that.
You're right. I was going through my notes when I heard you talk about the 1 second. I just assumed that's what you're talking about because I had it wrote down too. So yeah, okay. That's twice in the final 5 minutes of the movie that we get this typical lazy, stick with the movies with them going to the 1 second on the clock, buzzer beater. So, but overall, I think it's a good finale to the movie. I was very thoroughly pleased to see William die. Take it away, Nico.
Yeah, William's death is awesome. Y'all ready? Y'all got any more final thoughts? We're jumping into just some quick fun facts.
No, sir.
All right, I'll just knock mine out. Y'all said a lot of mine throughout, which is awesome. I just got 3 of them from IMDb. At 8 minutes, the Carousel Trap is the longest trap in the series. The Carousel Trap originally had 10 victims tied to it, but this was changed for pacing and also to tie in with the film's title. And the last one I have is, this is the first Saw film to not feature an audio tape playing in the final moments to explain one of the games. Saw 3, and Saw 4 ended with tapes from Jigsaw. Saw 2 ended with a tape from Amanda, and Saw 5 ended with a tape from Hoffman. And that's only 3 facts I have left. Anybody got any more?
No, I said all mine.
I've got 2. This film was banned in Thailand when it was released, and like they couldn't show it in theaters because it was too gory. And then also in Spain, it received a rating of X, so it also wasn't shown in theaters, which obviously hurt. Mike's going to get into the numbers, I'm assuming, but it's going to hurt the box office numbers there because that's 2 countries that they weren't allowed to show it in theaters. In Spain, they give movies an R13 movie rating, which what that means in America, something's rated R, it means you need to be 18 years or older or with an adult to see it. In Spain, that number is R13, and there was no way that they could get it modified and get it cut to meet that threshold there. So it was not shown in Spain, nor was it shown in Thailand, as Alan from The Hangover called it.
By the way, this movie of all movies gets the rated X. It wasn't any worse than any of the other Saws. But anyway, okay. So this movie had an $11 million budget and it grossed $68.2 million. So of course there was going to be another one.
Yeah, but I think this was still like the lowest one that it made in the
It was.
franchise, money wise.
Yeah,
It was.
All right,
it
y'all
was up
ready?
to this point. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but still, it still made almost 6 times its budget, so it still did well. All right, let's jump into our favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. And I'll just go first tonight since everyone knows what I'm going to do. My favorite kill, I chose William Easton, dissolved in half by acid. I just wrote, what a horrible way to go. My least favorite kill was Sashi, the audio unscrambler, who just got shot by Perez. Rating, I gave 10. Everyone knows it's coming. To no surprise, this is my favorite film and my favorite franchise. This entire franchise is nostalgic to me, and I remember seeing this movie in theaters, and I love it now as much as I did then. It's one of the best endings in the franchise. Love seeing Tobin Bell acting and the scenes with him and William. I love watching William's games. His games are truly the best when it comes to testing the subject with their issues. The Carousel Trap is my favorite of the franchise. I got a few cons. One, I wish it was 15 to 20 minutes longer and we go ahead and get the Dr. Gordon reveal in this so we never get that piss poor Saw 3D. And another is, like you guys said, another is how Erickson and Perez weren't prepared at all for Hoffman's attacks in the end. Because, I mean, like, yeah, it's like they knew what was going on the whole fucking time, so you're not prepared for this man going to kill y'all too. But in conclusion, I love this movie and franchise, and I hope in 2021 we get some Saw franchise stars on our show, which I really hope we do. Who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead and go, I guess. So this movie to me, I think, is all about the traps and less about the people playing the games, as much as the other ones were. I don't care about the people, and it's like the self-sacrifice and like the lessons learned aren't so much about like themselves in this. It's more about like picking someone's fate or like having your fate chosen for you. Like William, well, by the way, I think in the very last scene I called him Michael. I don't know where the hell that came from, but it's William. But like William was put in like a position to to pick and choose who lived and died. But that's what he already did as a job. I mean, I guess empathy was the lesson he was supposed to like learn, but to me, like in Kramer's other traps, like everyone had a chance to get out, and like here it was all about like William going through and learning whatever lesson, but like fuck everybody else that was throughout this whole game.
This was
And like
this was very Saw 3-esque with Jeff.
yeah, yeah, right, yeah, and anyway, I mean that may be like a mind or a statement to like Kramer's mindset, like at that point in time, but I don't know, but like I think this whole thing to me would have fit more if it was Hoffman making these traps here. Now, I love Kramer and Jigsaw making the traps. It just to me, it would have fit more to me. It would have made more sense in like that whole lesson regard. But all in all, shit, it's the 6th installment and it still keeps me interested. Again, like I said, it's one big gigantic movie. And while it's not my favorite one of the franchise, I can't remember where I ranked it. I think I put it behind 1, 2, and 4 for sure. I believe I can attest to that for a fact. Go listen to it at don'tgoouthere.com. But I think this was another solid entry for sure. My favorite kill was William, like I said, great effects. And my least favorite kill, I think, was Alan, choking, just being pulled away off screen. And I gave this movie a solid 7.
Yeah, so Brian mentioned something that I think is important about this movie, and it is the 6th installment in a franchise. And those normally go terribly wrong, except Friday the 13th and Saw. I think that this is a really, really entertaining horror movie, and it has everything. It hits all of Saw's greatest hits. It's got all the right traps, the right kills. The gore is good. The plot is good. It has the best Saw trap of all time, and the Carousel one. I know I've already said it, but it's worth repeating here. Um, but I really like the plot here. I think obviously you can't watch this movie as a standalone. You need to see the other ones for it to make sense. But I think that's just kind of Saw. That's kind of where the franchise went, and I like that about the Saw franchise. All in all, really enjoyable movie. I've hit my highs and lows, but my favorite kill is William. I think the effects look really good there, and I really want to see him die, so that works for me. My least favorite kill is probably Debbie because I think the trap was stupid, and she she probably could have won the trap, and she didn't, and she's an idiot. So that's probably my least favorite kill there. I went ahead and gave this movie a 7.5. And it's a really good installment in Saw. I think I ranked it number 2. I'm not 100% sure when we did Saw rankings, but if it's not 2, it's definitely 3, and it's really, really good. And upon rewatch, I like it even more. So, job well done to Saw. They consistently put out good to really, really good movies in their franchise.
All right, so for me, like I said, off the rip of the episode, I think this is my third favorite film in the franchise. I really enjoy the movie. There's a lot of good stuff in it, a lot of cool traps. It really fits nicely as far as a piece to the puzzle, no pun intended, of the franchise. It really puts some bows on some storylines and further some others. Where there's things that could have been improved on, yeah, the Hoffman storyline may have drug on too much. The cops, or he should have been busted way before he was. He shouldn't have made it as far as he did. The flashbacks will, like I said, put you in a blender if you're not mentally sharp enough to remember all the shit that's happened in the 5 movies that precede this one. But overall, I really enjoy it. Really good movie. As far as my favorite kill, I went with William just because the brutality of the trap and the creativeness of, putting his fate after he's been going through the ringer, trying to survive, make it to the end, putting his fate in someone else's hand. So it's the poetic justice there. I really enjoyed that. Plus he's a dick, so he deserved to die. To quote Samuel L. Jackson, yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell. Least favorite kill was Hank, just because it wasn't a bad trap, but did he really deserve to die just because he smokes? Like, that really bothers me that they put him in that spot there. But as far as my ranking go, I went with an 8. I really enjoyed the film, so I went with a solid 8, and that puts our composite score. Obviously, Nico brought it up some, but 8.125.
Awesome. I had a lot of fun reviewing it.
Yes, sir.
Sequel, like I said at the beginning of the episode, sequel month, I think we've all picked some really good movies. Ones that mean a lot to us, a lot too.
Right.
Like I know with Mike and Scream 4, I know that's very, very close to him. This one's very close to me. Brian, Aliens, very close to him. And we all love Scary Movie too. It's all funny. Sequel month was fun. Let's go ahead and announce our next theme month. We're going to kick off the new year with Brother Dustin's first pick in our Creature Feature. Dustin, you want to tell the fans what your pick is for Creature Feature month?
Yes, sir. Creature Feature month. Hey, this movie is going to be the oldest movie that we've ever reviewed. This movie is a classic by every definition of the word. We're going to dip into Alfred Hitchcock for the first time. I went with The Birds for my Creature Feature, and I'm excited to get Nico to watch a movie that he would never watch on his own.
Facts.
I
was about to say
I'm happy about that too.
Never seen it.
I'm very happy that Nico has to watch this movie. One, because I think he's going to like it more than he thinks he does now, and I'm excited to talk about it. It's definitely the oldest film we reviewed. Yes.
Oh, by a lot.
Yeah, I figured. Well, I'm excited because it's much better than you think, Nico.
Oh, I'm gonna go into it open-minded. I mean, I never seen The Shining or Train to Busan, and I love both of them, so we'll see.
Yeah, but those movies weren't made in 1963, so this is gonna be interesting.
Yeah, those movies were in color, brother.
Well, this one is too. This one is too.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just want to say on behalf of all of us, to all the fans and listeners, this is our last episode for 2020. I just want to thank everyone who's listened to us this year, whether you've been with us from the beginning or you just jumped on. We really appreciate it. I mean, regardless, we would do this show without the listeners because we just love doing it. But it really means a lot to us that people take the time to listen to us, comment on our post on social media, go to our website, buy our merchandise. Shout out to Shan sending us cookies. I haven't forgot that. That's awesome. So yeah, thank you fans for your support. We really appreciate it. We're going to try and equal 2021 to 2020. This has been a great first year for us. Thank you for the support. Y'all have a good one. Just want to remind everybody,